According to the Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO, agriculture remains the foundation of Nigeria's economy, providing livelihood for most Nigerians and generating millions of jobs, year in, year out.
Yes, you cannot have any doubt as to the lofty interventions that have happened to agriculture over a very long period of time. But we need to have sustainable intervention. The farmers need support, and it comes in terms of credit and subsidy. Everywhere in the world, you must do that to agriculture for it to be sustainable. Now, in Nigeria, we had serious opportunities in the 60s and early 70s to be able to do real agriculture. And then we could have invested all the gains from oil into agricultural production and enhancing productivity as a whole. But we became a bit lax because we thought oil was going to be there forever. But unfortunately, at some point, it even became a curse because we had so many problems in the Niger Delta area.
The Bank of Agriculture that you know is being transformed by His Excellency Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR. And when it's been transformed, it's about his own vision for the agriculture sector and us at the Bank of Agriculture being the premier agri-financing institution in the country. He wants to reposition and restructure the bank to be what it was set up to be. The bank was set up 53 years ago, and it was an amalgamation of three of the biggest banks in Nigeria, which was the FIP Bank, and the People's Bank, and what you know as the NACRB, the National Agriculture Cooperative Bank. And the reason it was set up to be such a huge bank, having 110 locations across the country, was because agriculture was the biggest contributor to our GDP. Nigeria was one of the biggest exporters of coffee in the past. Everyone knows about cocoa, but not coffee. We used to export 500,000 tons of coffee back then. So the Bank of Agriculture was set up as the NNPC that we know of today, which was the cash cow of the country. So knowing the history, it helps us solve for what we want to be today.
It's been about almost 3 years of existence of the agency, and we have been here for close to 2 years leading this agency. And the NADF, as the name implies, the National Agricultural Development Fund, is a funding mechanism that has been provided for the development of agriculture in Nigeria. This funding mechanism is sector-wide. There isn't any subsector within the larger agricultural sector that the NADF is not supposed to touch. And in doing this, we have really, to the best of our ability, x-rayed the sector and found those areas that require the most funding, those areas that have funding gaps, and what type of funding mechanisms that can be put in place to ensure that there is growth and development of this sector.
Nigerians tilt and cultivate her vast arable land spread across the 6 geopolitical zones of the country. This is geared toward making the country self-sufficient in food production and drastically reducing the reliance on foreign food imports.
The Bank of Agriculture primary job is to finance smallholder farmers. That ranges between 40 to 70 million smallholder farmers in Nigeria, giving them microcredits for 1 to 5 hectare farm in terms of primary production, to also for financing the big farmers who are looking to do big ticket deals like storage infrastructure, logistics infrastructure in agriculture, and also massive fertilizer plants that are not of $2 to $3 billion. That's really the job of the Bank of Agriculture, because if you look at our food systems, the reason why it's so fragmented is because we're not solving the problems within the input system that falls under the food system. So you're talking seeds, fertilizer, agrochemicals, water for irrigation, and agronomy services and mechanization are the last one. So if you talk about seeds, how do we start to provide good seeds to our farmers to move them from farming using grains and getting 1 ton per hectare to 2 tons per hectare to them being able to achieve 6 to 10 tons per hectare with better improved seeds. It means we need to go back to the origin of the seed production, which is seeds production companies. We need to finance them to start to create new IPs through research institutions, creating breeder seeds, foundation seeds, and certified seeds. Once we start to do good certified seeds, we can now multiply that across the country for our farmers to be able to access and plant to be able to get 6 to 10 tons per hectare.
The government of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is extremely agriculture friendly. And the mantra is that agriculture should transit into a business. Agriculture should be seen as that business that it should be. Agriculture has in the past been seen not as only developmental, but also an area that is continuously interventionist. There is a huge push to transit agriculture into a business. Farmer productivity, farmer profitability is at the core of what this government is trying to achieve. And validation is the ensuring of the operationalization of the NADF, the now capitalization of the BOA, and the encouragement of other development finance institutions to really look at agriculture. There are agricultural products within the BOI, there are agricultural products within Nexim, and of course, the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security with its new outlook and the new mantra that they're pursuing.
This administration has opened so many windows to help agricultural production, but there are so many problems. The food system has come into a lot of problems, but this is a global thing. Nigeria's investment in agriculture is still far short of getting us out. Luckily, when the government has decided that it would recapitalize the Bank of Agriculture to the tune of 1.5 trillion. Now, that will be good if all the cross-cutting issues are also addressed. Because even if you put in this money and you don't give the right people the loan and you ensure that they will pay back and others will get, it will be a problem. And there are many, many other challenges. Some of them are man-made, some of them are acts of God, like floodings and all that. All these things compounded the issue of the food system in Nigeria. The agri-food system needs to be bolstered, and you can only do that with sustainable finance. Sustainable finance will come in the way of making the Bank of Agriculture the farmers' bank. Let the farmers feel that it is their bank, and when they borrow, they pay because it is only when they pay that others get. You can only do that by selling equity to them. Yes, some people imagine that if you sell equity to a very large number of people, it becomes amorphous. No, you are giving this to farmers, and you don't have to have their numbers. What you should consider is the money that they will pull together. When they pull it together, it's an investment. They get a piece of the action through the bank. So it doesn't matter that the farmers are 40 million or whatever. It's not all 40 million that will sit on the board. It is the money that they will pull together that will go in. Because if you notice, the CBN and the Federal Ministry of Finance, they have not paid their equity. This 1.5 trillion is coming directly from government. It's a presidential allocation. And that is like ad hoc. Because once it finishes and nothing comes out of it, then of course you go back to square one and the bank will still go back to its position. So before you do that, you need to restructure the bank. Let the bank operate like a bank.
Successive administrations come up with various interventionist programs with a view to show up the output of Nigerian farmers, making the country grow what it eats and eat what it grows, thereby preserving scarce foreign exchange that can be tailored into other developmental purposes.
We take a problem, we bring in actors, we stress test, we simulate, what we think the solution should be before we implement. Having done it in the private sector doesn't mean I can't do it in a government-owned company. So for me, I'm very confident that we'll do a lot of stuff to reposition the bank. If you think about it, we started 6 months ago. We never used to operate as a bank. We used to also operate as a government agency because we never had banking infrastructure. In 2-3 months, I did all the banking infrastructure. So we're on NIPS, NIPSS, we have all the certification, we've onboarded on the CBN platform. Now all our customers can bank with Bank of Agriculture, not agency banking with Zenith Bank, and the Bank of Agriculture account under Zenith Bank. Now we are our own bank. So all that technology has been sort of installed. We know that customers can now get cards, powered by Afrigo. Your NIN and your BVN will be on those cards, which is the first of its kind in Nigeria. It means I can track you through your NIN. I know exactly, where you live. I have your fingerprint. I have your BVN. I have everything else. So it means I can track every of my farmer. And it means that I solve problems of financial inclusion as well, or financial exclusion, by farmer and farm database that Mr. President has graciously approved that we should do in partnership with Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security. Once we do this, it means we can have about 40 million farmers in our database. Once we have that, we can open bank accounts for all of them, right? So I solve problems of financial exclusion as well. And with their card, they can get input on the card because it has, a wallet system on that card. They can also use it for, debit and credit type of transaction.
First and foremost, we need to do away with the quick fixes. We need to be very serious. We need to agree and admit to the challenges and critically look at them. They are very surmountable if you put all the energy together. We need to not see agriculture anymore as the village man or my grandfather's kind of life. Agriculture is truly very profitable business. Agriculture is a national driver. Perhaps looking at our own geography and demography, we do not have a better structure. We do not have a better national driver towards economic growth than agriculture. Today's era of agriculture has also brought in a lot of technology that is optimizing the sector, that is allowing or is inviting youths to come in and play in the sector. So those are pluses that we need to, but as a whole, we have to be very serious. We have to ensure that solutions are well curated. We have to do away with the quick fixes, and then we have to also try to not see, because agriculture is also a global phenomenon. The competition is global. So we cannot look at Nigeria as within that prison of a country. We need to look at, first and foremost, the regional interplay of different systems, of different prospects, of different problems that would help ensure that Nigeria is poised to really be the driver of agriculture within the ECOWAS region. There is a lot of interest in Nigerian produce from our neighbors.
Analysts have, however, advocated for strong institutions and enhanced capitalization of relevant agencies, started with revamping the agriculture value chain.
If you look at what is happening in hand by the FAO, which was just launched recently, it's predicated on 5 crops. The 5 crops are cassava, maize, tomato, dairies, and fisheries. Take these to the limit. Let us be sufficient at home and be able to export, even within Africa. Because Africa is one market. There is a potential market in Africa through AFTA. AFTA makes Africa one market, just like what they have in the EU. We should also mitigate post-harvest loss, and it will be through energy, sufficient distribution system. You must be able to tackle the distribution system. Transport system should be seamless, should be easily affordable, so that you take whatever is produced from the place of production to place of use easily, without either it going bad or without delays in supply, which can cause a hunger in so many places. And you must be able to really address issues of like school feeding system. You must be able to have a program where the youngsters are sufficiently fed with nutritiously balanced meals so that they will be able to think from outside the box. I mean, we all had this opportunity. I mean, in growing up, we used to get powdered milk in the primary school. Our We in the lower classes we were getting it, and the people in the senior classes were even begging us for all this. And then you can see a person like me from a village. I'm able to speak English anywhere in the world.
One of the things that we are looking at is how do we provide funding in a structured environment? How do you provide funding in a structured manner? How do we keep funding ecosystems so that gaps are not being met? Our strategy is to ensure that, for instance, with irrigation as an example and post-harvest losses, then we know that when we are funding primary production, we are not only funding increment or increased post-harvest losses, but we're trying to fund a structured environment. I think the best example of what we've put down is the current program we're doing, that is an input financing targeted at agro processors. Here we're trying to see that we fund agro processors that have proven backward integration models, so that when farmers produce at the primary level, there is proper offtake. We are solving the problems of fragmented supply chains. We are solving the problems of diseased input. We are solving the problem of lack of feedstock for agro processors. So we're really trying to see that we strengthen that ecosystem between farm and factory in that program.
Developing agriculture in Nigeria goes beyond unbridled enhanced funding. It requires well-developed strategies with critical stakeholders playing a pivotal role and synergizing seamlessly such that leakages are reduced to the barest minimum and factors of production are optimally enhanced.
We're a bank, like a GT bank or an Access bank. The only difference is we are a GOC, a government-owned bank, right, or government-owned company. We are not set up by an act. We're limited by liability company, meaning we have shareholders. The shareholders could have been you, it could have been Rabobank, it could have been GT Bank. In this case, the shareholders are government. It doesn't mean we should not declare, profit or dividends to government. So we are not going to be running things as government. The steps we put in place, we have designed and implemented a robust technology platform where it tracks and monitors every part of the value chain end to end. The time we give peace to the farmers, or we give credit to them, to the time that they meant to apply your first chemical, to the time they get to the fruit harvest. We can track everything. And we take from the farmers, net of what we've provided for the farmers plus our own interest rate. So that's principal plus interest. And farmers get, whatever whatever is remaining.
In a bid to run agriculture as a viable, profitable, and thriving business that it is, the current administration has jettisoned the concept of intervention programs and policies put in place to drive agricultural productivity. Rather, it has strengthened statutory agencies, institutions, and bodies by building their capacities, injecting much needed funding, streamlining and solidifying their processes and procedure to elevate agriculture to enviable heights.
The agri-lending is long-term, and you need patience. You need to help the people to keep their books right and to monitor what they do and all that. And you also need to encourage large players in the agriculture ecosystem so that when they have operations, those operations are supported sufficiently to be able to keep them in production all year round. And you need to do agriculture all year round. Don't even think in terms of just doing agriculture because during the rains or rain-fed agriculture. You must be able to do it year round. So encourage irrigation, encourage climate-smart agriculture, do a lot of work to mitigate the effects of climate change, bring in mechanization. First, use small handheld equipment to help smallholder farmers, then get into real automation. People will be able to afford it once there is a steady income coming from agriculture. Otherwise, it's ad hoc. And that is what we have been having. You see, all the interventions have not been either fully implemented or fully sustained. And that is the bane of agriculture in Nigeria.
Technocrats have reiterated that embracing the agriculture business model is the way to go, as against interventionist paradigms replete with leakages, wastages, non-sustainability, and outright diversion of scarce resources that would have improved the fortunes of agriculture across its value chain.
Gone are those days where Bank of Agriculture will say, oh, we finance 2 million farmers. Oh, it's too difficult to manage them because we need to go see them physically. We're going to be using extension workers, private extension workers. We're going to be using extension workers in states. And also ourselves would have our own layers of, M&E as well. So all these sort of things will ensure that we put out money and we get these monies back. And there's so many instruments as well. The instruments of first losses that, we're going to be applying to it. The guarantee funds, NISO, that will provide credit risk guarantee. There's NCGC that the president, has recently established. There's the guarantee fund, owned by DBN. There's AGCSF as well. So they're just different instruments that we can use. Advent of climate change now, we're going to be layering on top of it, different types of insurance as well. So with all this, we believe we can have a robust agri-financing sector. All this sort of innovation are what we're bringing into the agri-financing space. And we're doing it in partnership with all other government agencies, National Agriculture Development Fund and ADF, our sister agency. We're working with them. NAIC, the National Agriculture Insurance Company, we're working with them. And, a host of others. So for us, it's all about collaboration. It's all about partnership. If we're able to do it, it means we can move the agriculture sector and move it to, greater heights.
As a government, what we are trying to do is to avoid quick fixes, is to really look at those solutions critically. We are not hiding that there are no problems. So the mantra is, how do we now surmount these challenges? How do we look at this? How do we critically look at these problems and then find tailored solutions to them? At the NADF, ours is to provide funding support. And in providing this funding support, in everything we do, we ensure that to the best of our ability, we understand the ecosystem we are funding. We see the challenges and then we see possible outcomes, possible scenarios in our funding. Beyond the conventional de-risking mechanisms that we provide in the guarantees, blended finance, the catalytic finance and all, we're also very interested in seeing that the whole mantra is, how do we keep attracting private capital? So we're very interested in that first loss capital. Currently, we're funding a lot of studies. These are bankable, commercial, technical, viable studies that will help investment flow into the sector.
Furthermore, approaching agriculture through planning, data gathering, candid analysis, scientific projections, and continuous rejigging and evaluation of the processes and practices provide ample opportunities for growth. This will attract the youth into agriculture, disabusing their mindset that agriculture is only meant for the poor, uneducated, unexposed, and illiterate persons. Private sector capital is attracted and injected into the agricultural value chain.
You must encourage people to produce optimally. You must do something to mitigate the effects of climate change. You must mechanize. You must attack or address the energy sector. You must attack distribution of food items. You must also assist people to do good marketing. Otherwise, nobody will be interested. You can't put 50,000 to produce something and then you have to sell it 30,000. Nobody will do that. We must discourage importation. We must look inwards and we must produce internally. Even countries like Japan that used to have a lot of gains from technology and they thought that they could import everything. They are the people who brought hydroponics and vertical agriculture, because it is not possible to sustainably import and feed the population. Yes, as a world, we need to have a symbiotic relationship with others, but we should encourage low importation. The WTO is very clear. You are not supposed to do everything to avoid going or taking or selling to other people. But you must do limited protectionism to be able to bring yourself up. We have seen it in China, for instance. China, Russia, they were all used to be called or addressed as countries behind iron curtain. Today, China is a first world country, and even the United States is afraid of it. Now, everything you see in Nigeria, all the mills, all the factories you have, they are most of the things are made in China. China is now a global giant, and Nigeria can be a global giant in terms of Africa and the world as a whole.
Value addition results from this as agriculture entrepreneurs devise value addition models capable of shoring up income for the farmers domestically and boosting the amount of produce Nigeria can export to other countries of the world.